Silence. A moment of stillness before the storm. Your eyes will be glued to the screen, your heart will beat faster, and you will never see America the same way again. Before we delve into the terrifying darkness, where crime lurks beneath a veneer of peace, take a second to ensure you don't miss any of the other compelling stories we're about to bring you. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications now to become part of a community where we collectively explore mysteries, confront fears, and unveil the truth. Now brace yourself. The story you are about to read is not a dream. It is a real nightmare, a scar etched deep into the American psyche, and it begins. Now, the late autumn chill had already begun to bite at the edges of Willow Creek, a town so quaint it seemed plucked from a postcard. Leaves, burnished in fiery reds and golds, drifted lazily from ancient oaks, blanketing the cobblestone streets in a temporary beauty. It was a town where everyone knew everyone, where the biggest scandal was Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning pumpkin being disqualified from the annual Harvest Festival. That was, until the morning Farmer O'Malley found Sarah Jenkins. Sarah, a kindergarten teacher beloved by all, lay amidst the vibrant, fading blooms of her own rose garden, a scene that would forever haunt the collective memory of Willow Creek. She wasn't simply dead. She was an exhibit. Her throat was a gaping, crimson smile, expertly carved, almost surgically precise. Yet, her body was arranged with a disturbing reverence, her hands clasped over her chest, a single, flawless, blood-red rose placed delicately between her fingers. It wasn't one of her garden roses. Sarah, everyone knew, preferred delicate pinks and whites. This rose was a deep, velvety crimson, its petals perfect, untouched by frost, almost impossibly vibrant. Chief Miller, a man whose tenure had been marked by little more than petty theft and lost pets, felt the weight of the world crash upon his shoulders. He surveyed the scene, his breath fogging in the crisp air, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. The garden, usually a riot of life, now felt like a mausoleum. The silence, broken only by the distant caw of a crow, was oppressive. "Get everyone back," he barked, his voice rough. "No one touches anything." His two deputies, fresh out of the academy, looked pale and bewildered. This wasn't in their training manuals. This was something out of a horror film. Miller, despite his shock, was a professional. He secured the scene, called for forensics from the state police, and tried to make sense of the senseless. Why Sarah? Why here? And that rose? It whispered of something far more sinister than a simple crime of passion. The news spread through Willow Creek like wildfire, leaving a trail of disbelief and fear. Parents clutched their children tighter. Doors that were once left unlocked were now double-bolted. The idyllic facade of Willow Creek crumbled, revealing a raw, primal terror beneath. Sarah Jenkins, the gentle soul who taught their children the alphabet, was gone, murdered in a way no one could comprehend. A week later, the town was still reeling. Funerals were held, vigils observed, but the underlying question remained unanswered. Who? Why? The state forensics team had found no forced entry, no struggle. The killer had moved like a ghost, left no discernible fingerprints, and vanished without a trace, leaving only the chilling signature of the crimson rose. Then, 2 weeks after Sarah's death, the unimaginable happened again. 50 miles away, in the slightly larger town of Fairview, a similar scene unfolded. David Thompson, a reclusive but well-respected software engineer, was found in his meticulously manicured backyard pond. His body floating amidst lily pads, his throat slit. And there it was again, the single, pristine crimson rose, floating beside him like a morbid offering. This time, the national media took notice. A small-town tragedy was one thing. 2 meticulously executed murders, geographically linked but seemingly random in victim choice, with an identical, unsettling signature, was a story. Reporter Clara Vance, a driven investigative journalist for the National Beacon, felt a cold shiver run down her spine as she read the initial reports. 2 victims, different ages, different professions, no apparent connection. Yet, the same precise wound, the same ritualistic arrangement, the same impossible rose. It was too much to be coincidence. This was not a local issue anymore. This was a pattern. Clara began digging, compiling every shred of information, every local news report, every police statement. She noted the chilling precision, the lack of struggle, the almost artistic arrangement of the bodies. She wrote a scathing, insightful article, drawing the parallels between the cases, dubbing the unknown killer the Crimson Bloom. Her article went viral, forcing the hand of federal authorities. The FBI was called in. From their hallowed halls in Quantico, a team was assembled, led by Special Agent Olivia Thorne. Olivia was a profiler, sharp as a tack, with an uncanny ability to burrow into the minds of monsters. But she also carried a ghost, an unsolved case from her past, a string of disappearances that had haunted her for years. This new case, with its chilling artistry and elusive nature, felt disturbingly familiar. Olivia landed in Fairview, the autumn leaves now a somber brown, their vibrant life drained away, much like the sense of security in the region. She walked through David Thompson's garden, a quiet, almost meditative space that had been violated. The pond, now drained, still held the lingering scent of decay and fear. "Tell me everything," she commanded the local detective, her voice calm but authoritative, her eyes scanning every detail, every shadow. The initial profile was grim, intelligent, organized, meticulous. The killer took immense pride in their work, almost as if each murder was a performance, a morbid art installation. The rose was a key. It wasn't just a symbol. It was an integral part of the ritual. "This isn't just about killing," Olivia mused to her team, her gaze fixed on a photograph of the rose. "This is about making a statement. A very, very specific one." The pressure mounted daily. News channels replayed Clara Vance's reports, speculating wildly. The public demanded answers. The FBI team worked round the clock, poring over evidence, interviewing witnesses, chasing down dead ends. Olivia felt the familiar, gnawing ache of a challenging case, a hunger to understand, to catch the shadow. Then a breakthrough, small but significant. The crimson rose. Forensics had determined it was a rare hybrid, not easily found in local florists. It was a specific variety known as black baccarat, famous for its deep, almost black-red hue and velvety petals. It was usually cultivated in specialized nurseries or by avid collectors. This detail, though seemingly minor, narrowed their search significantly. The killer wasn't just picking any rose. They were choosing this rose. Olivia held a photograph of the black baccarat, its dark beauty almost hypnotic. "This killer," she murmured, "is a connoisseur. They appreciate beauty, even in death. And they want us to know it." The realization sent a chill through her. This wasn't a desperate act. This was a calculated, deliberate series of performances, and the crimson bloom was far from finished. The first petals had fallen, but the full bloom of terror was yet to unfurl across America. The trail of black baccarat roses led Olivia Thorne and her team down a rabbit hole of botanical oddities and specialized horticulture. Their investigation now encompassed a sprawling network of high-end nurseries, private collectors, and hybridizers across the East Coast. The sheer scale of the search was daunting, but Olivia felt a grim satisfaction. The crimson bloom had, for the first time, left a discernible thread, however fine. The initial theory that the killer might be a florist or a gardener quickly evolved. The precision of the murders, the careful staging, the geographic spread, this was no simple green thumb gone rogue. This was someone deeply entrenched in the knowledge of their chosen symbol, someone who moved with calculated intent. The black baccarat wasn't a random choice. It spoke of rarity, of dark beauty, of a certain morbid elegance. The winter months settled over America, but the chill that gripped the nation had little to do with the weather. The crimson bloom was far from dormant. 3 more victims emerged, each in a different state. A retired librarian in Pennsylvania, a young artist in North Carolina, and a university professor in Ohio. Each case bore the chilling hallmarks: the precise throat slitting, the ritualistic placement, and the ubiquitous black baccarat rose. The victims remained disparate, their only commonality the manner of their deaths and the symbolic flower. The media frenzy reached a fever pitch, painting a terrifying portrait of an elusive phantom. Olivia's team worked tirelessly, eyes bloodshot, fueled by coffee and a burning desire for justice. They cross-referenced every black baccarat supplier, every significant purchase, every person with even a remote connection to the rare rose. The leads were numerous, but each one seemed to dissolve into thin air. The crimson bloom was a ghost, leaving only the chilling beauty of their macabre signature. "There has to be a connection, Olivia," Agent Miller, her second-in-command, urged one late night, gesturing at a sprawling map adorned with crime scene pins. "These aren't random. The victims. There's something we're missing." Olivia stared at the map, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We've analyzed their online presence, their social circles, their pasts. Nothing. No shared clubs, no common friends, no overlapping events. Except for the method and the rose, they are strangers." She paused, her eyes tracing a line between the pinpoints. "Unless the connection isn't what they are, but who they represent. Or perhaps what they don't represent." Then, a chilling discovery. Forensics on the North Carolina victim's rose revealed a microscopic pollen grain from a specific, incredibly rare orchid that grew only in one particular private conservatory in upstate New York. It was a long shot, but it was something. Olivia and Miller immediately flew to New York, their hopes cautiously high. The conservatory, owned by the reclusive and eccentric botanist Dr. Alistair Finch, was a sprawling glass haven, a verdant labyrinth of exotic flora. Finch, a man in his late 60s with an unruly shock of white hair and a perpetually distracted air, was initially uncooperative, dismissing their questions with an air of academic disdain. "My orchids are my life, agents," Finch declared, adjusting his spectacles. "I rarely allow outsiders, and certainly not the FBI." But Olivia was relentless. She described the murders, the meticulous nature of the killer, the specific pollen. When she mentioned the black baccarat rose, Finch's eyes, usually distant, sharpened with a flicker of recognition. "Black baccarat," he repeated slowly, a strange note in his voice. "A truly magnificent specimen. So dark, so evocative." Olivia pressed him. "Do you know anyone who cultivates both black baccarat roses and this specific orchid?" Finch hesitated, then sighed. "There was one, a former protege of mine. Brilliant, but troubled. Adrian Vance." The name hit Olivia like a physical blow. Vance. Clara Vance. The journalist who had coined the crimson bloom. A quick search revealed Adrian Vance was indeed Clara's estranged older brother. He had been a botany student at a prestigious university, specializing in hybridizing roses and orchids, before a severe mental breakdown years ago. He'd vanished from public life, rumored to be living a solitary existence somewhere in the Midwest. Finch provided an old address, a dilapidated farmhouse on the outskirts of a forgotten town in rural Iowa. The pieces began to click into place, forming a terrifying mosaic. Adrian Vance, a botanical genius, a disturbed mind, the reclusive nature, the precision, the morbid artistry. He fit the profile almost too perfectly. The thrill of the chase, the intellectual challenge, was suddenly replaced by a cold dread. This wasn't just a killer. This was a ghost from someone's past, and that someone was now intertwined with the very investigation itself. The FBI task force, now fully energized, converged on Iowa. The farmhouse was exactly as Finch had described. Isolated, overgrown, a monument to decay. As they approached, a faint, sweet, cloying scent wafted through the air, the unmistakable aroma of blooming roses. Olivia led the tactical team. The silence was thick, broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot and the thumping of her own heart. The front door was ajar, as if inviting them in. Inside, the house was a chaos of botanical equipment, half-finished paintings of flowers, and stacks of esoteric books on horticulture and symbolism. It reeked of stale air and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet. In the living room, a macabre altar had been erected. A crudely carved wooden effigy, adorned with withered leaves, sat on a pedestal. Around it, in perfect circles, were dozens of black baccarat roses, some fresh, some wilting, all redolent with their dark perfume. On a small table next to the altar, Olivia found a meticulously bound journal. Its pages were filled with elegant, sloping handwriting, detailing the properties of various flowers, their symbolic meanings, and disturbing philosophical musings on beauty, death, and the ephemeral nature of life. There were also chillingly precise diagrams of human anatomy, with particular emphasis on the carotid artery. As Olivia flipped through the journal, her eyes landed on a specific entry, dated just a few days prior. It spoke of the ultimate bloom, of a final, perfect sacrifice that would transcend the ordinary and elevate true beauty. The location mentioned was ambiguous, but the tone was unmistakable. Adrian Vance was planning one more, grander act. Adrian Vance was not in the farmhouse. He had moved on, leaving behind his chilling shrine. But the journal provided an even more disturbing revelation. Tucked within its pages was a faded photograph. A young Adrian beaming, standing beside a beautiful woman with striking, kind eyes. It was their mother, Olivia realized, a faint pang of recognition striking her. And clipped to the back of the photo, a newspaper article from years ago, detailing the unsolved disappearance of a local girl, a case Olivia had personally failed to crack. A case that had haunted her for years. A case she now realized, with sickening clarity, must have been Adrian's first bloom. The thorns of obsession were now inextricably tangled, and Olivia was at the heart of their painful embrace. Adrian Vance, the Crimson Bloom, was not merely a killer. He was a carefully cultivated monster, and his next bloom, his ultimate sacrifice, was undoubtedly already in motion. And now she knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that this wasn't just about catching a killer. This was about finally confronting the ghost of her own past, a past that Adrian Vance now seemed terrifyingly connected to. The discovery of Adrian Vance's journal and his connection to Olivia's cold case sent shockwaves through the FBI team. The missing girl, Emily Davison, whose disappearance had plagued Olivia for years, was now inextricably linked to the Crimson Bloom. Adrian's journal hinted at a deep, twisted motive, a perverse philosophy that equated death with the ultimate form of beauty, a way to preserve innocence and perfection from the ravages of time and reality. Emily, a vibrant young dancer, had been his first bloom, his initial experiment in this macabre art. The journal's final entry, hinting at a final, perfect sacrifice, became the new focus of the investigation. Olivia, now driven by a potent mix of professional duty and personal anguish, felt an urgency she hadn't experienced since Emily's disappearance. Her past failures and the Crimson Bloom's present atrocities converged, creating a singular, terrifying goal: find Adrian Vance before he could strike again. The ambiguity of Adrian's last journal entry was a puzzle. The ultimate bloom will rise where the past is reborn, where the spirit is immortalized, beneath the gaze of the eternal guardians. It was poetic, maddeningly vague, and deeply personal. Olivia, however, saw a glimmer of understanding. Eternal guardians, rebirth, past. She remembered an old botanical garden in her hometown, a place where Emily used to practice ballet, known for its ancient statues and its Hall of Immortals, dedicated to rare, preserved botanical specimens. It was a long shot, but it resonated with Adrian's twisted sensibilities. The FBI immediately mobilized, sending teams to every significant botanical garden across the country, focusing on those with historical significance or unique collections. Olivia, however, knew in her gut that it had to be her hometown, the place where Emily's innocence had been so cruelly stolen, the genesis of Adrian's dark journey. She boarded the next flight to her quiet, grief-stricken hometown in New York, a place she had avoided for years. As she drove through the familiar streets, now shrouded in a fresh layer of snow, memories of Emily flooded her mind. Emily's bright laugh, her dreams of becoming a ballerina, the heartbreaking faces of her parents after she vanished. Olivia had promised them justice, a promise she had never been able to keep. Now, the crimson bloom offered a chance at a horrifying form of closure. The old botanical garden, Eden's Embrace, was eerily quiet under the winter sky. Its grand, ornate gates, usually bustling with visitors, stood closed, a maintenance sign hanging forlornly. Olivia knew this was it. Adrian would not choose a public spectacle. He craved the sanctity of his morbid art, the quiet reverence of his twisted ritual. She found him in the Hall of Immortals, a vast, heated glasshouse filled with meticulously preserved and displayed plants from around the world. The air was thick with the scent of earth and exotic blossoms, a stark contrast to the death that permeated the space. Adrian Vance stood in the center, a gaunt, almost ethereal figure, his long, artistic fingers meticulously arranging something on a makeshift pedestal. He wore a dark, tailored suit, somehow incongruous with the setting, yet perfectly fitting for his macabre ceremony. On the pedestal, carefully laid out, was the body of a young woman. She was beautiful, her face serene, adorned with delicate strands of baby's breath. Her throat, like all the others, bore the precise crimson line, and nestled in her hands, a single, perfect, black baccara rose. This was his ultimate bloom. The eternal guardians, Olivia realized, were the ancient statues of botanists and mythical figures that lined the hall, their marble eyes seemingly watching the grim tableau. Adrian. Olivia's voice was steady, despite the tremor in her hands. She drew her weapon, aiming it squarely at him. It's over. Adrian turned slowly, his eyes, once described as brilliant, now held a terrifying, almost childlike innocence, mixed with a chilling fanaticism. He looked at Olivia not with fear, but with a detached curiosity, as if she were merely another element in his grand design. "Agent Thorne," he acknowledged, his voice soft, almost melodic. "You found me, just as I knew you would. You always were the sharpest." He gestured to the victim. "Isn't she exquisite? The culmination of everything. The purest form of beauty, preserved forever, untainted by the ugliness of the world." He stepped closer to the body, a possessive tenderness in his gaze. Emily understood. She was the first to accept the gift. Olivia felt a jolt of ice. "Emily didn't accept anything, Adrian. You took her. You murdered her." A flicker of annoyance crossed Adrian's face. "Murder is such a crude word, Agent. I liberated her. I elevated her, just as I have elevated them all. They are no longer bound by the decay of life. They are eternal." He paused, his eyes gleaming. "You see, Agent, the world is a garden, slowly wilting. I am merely pruning, selecting the most perfect specimens to preserve their beauty forever." He then looked at Olivia, a strange, calculating glint in his eye. "You, Agent Thorne, are also a beautiful specimen, so driven, so burdened by your own past. Would you not wish to be free, to achieve a state of perfect, unchanging stillness?" He slowly reached into his pocket, his movement deliberate, unthreatening, yet menacing. "Don't move, Adrian," Olivia warned, her finger hovering over the trigger. Her mind raced, trying to decipher his next move, trying to get inside his broken, brilliant mind. Adrian slowly withdrew a small, ornate silver box. He opened it, revealing a single, gleaming surgical scalpel, its edge catching the faint light filtering through the glass roof. "The final touch," he whispered, his eyes fixed on Olivia's throat. "For the ultimate bloom." A tense standoff ensued. Olivia knew he wouldn't surrender easily. He saw himself as an artist, a philosopher, not a criminal. He believed in his mission. Suddenly, Adrian lunged, not at Olivia, but towards a large, ancient rose bush in the corner of the hall, its bare branches reaching up like skeletal fingers. He plucked a single, thorny branch. "You won't stop the cycle, Agent," he declared, his voice rising, a maniacal edge now evident. "The bloom will always return." As he turned back towards Olivia, brandishing the thorny branch like a weapon, the main doors to the Hall of Immortals burst open. Agent Miller and a tactical team stormed in, their weapons raised. "Drop it, Vance. FBI. Miller's voice echoed through the vast space. Adrian paused, his eyes darting between Olivia and the incoming agents. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of something akin to despair, or perhaps just cold calculation, crossed his face. He knew he was outnumbered, outmaneuvered. He raised the thorny branch, not in an act of aggression, but in a strange, almost defiant salute to his eternal guardians. Then, with a speed that belied his gaunt frame, he plunged the thorns of the rose branch deep into his own neck, near the carotid artery. A gasp rippled through the hall. The seeds of obsession, the twisted philosophy of beauty and death, would forever be etched into the memory of America. And for Olivia, the crimson stains of Adrian's legacy, and the ghosts of her own past, would forever bloom in the garden of her mind. The case was closed, but the scars, like the thorns of a rose, would remain.